He did say I'll text him and say, please see email.
All righty, good afternoon, everybody. It's right at 4 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started with our Good News Thursday. So first off on the list, we actually have a lot of good news today. I'm really happy to hear about to conclude our semester. First and foremost, Alexa Krause submitted F31 grant, so congratulations to her. You now get a little bit of stress free. That's amazing. Quite a bit out of the Lindbergh lab. So Natasha Boyle is a postdoctoral fellow that received a near perfect score from the American Heart Association on her fellowship. Congratulations to her. Additionally, it looks like Dina Videla is presenting a poster at the Fall Undergraduate Research Day. And then we also have Mary Keats, who's an NEP master student, will be graduating this December. So congratulations to everyone in the Lindbergh lab. And then we also have Brian Sharifi was offered a trainee position at the American Physiological Physiologist in Industry Committee. So that's pretty cool. Congratulations, Brian. And then the last one for today is Matt McDonald got his first author paper published in JPPL entitled Impact of Acute Sleep Restriction on Cerebrovascular Reactivity and Neurovascular Coupling in Young Men and Women, with co-authors Dr. Lindbergh, Canale, Megan Marsh, Brian, and an undergrad Sharon Fear. So congratulations to all of you for completing your semester. And of course, now we have one more really good news coming here, and I'll pass it over to Dr. Dillon to introduce.
Thank you. So it is my pleasure to introduce today's seminar speaker, Onyedika Ani, a PhD candidate in our research group in nutrition and exercise physiology. He has a diverse and impressive academic background, holding 2 master's degrees, one in public health nutrition from the University of Chester in UK, and another in biochemistry from the University of Ilorin in Nigeria. So currently he is working on his research program, focusing on functional food diets, cardiometabolic health, and the integration of microbiome metabolomics to study health disparities in racial and ethnic minority groups. So his scholarly contributions include several peer-reviewed publications addressing topics such as the role of the toxicology of bioactive compounds, dietary interventions, and their effects on metabolic health. He has a strong foundation in teaching, having served as a science teacher in various capacities in Nigeria, where he taught biology, chemistry, geography, and basic science. Now, how many of us can say we've taught all those subjects? Right? His dedication to education and mentorship extends to his current role as a STEM instructor for diversity and equity initiatives at NEP. And he's also an active member of the academic community here, serving in leadership roles such as the treasurer of the Graduate and Professional Council. He has been recognized with awards like the Charlene Scanlon Everett Graduate Research Fund and the University of Chester Westminster Scholarship. So in addition to his teaching and research, he's also presented his findings at national and international conferences such as the American Society of Nutrition and the Nutrition Society of Nigeria. So his cross-disciplinary expertise and his passion for advancing public health nutrition make him a really valuable voice in our field. So today, Onyedika will discuss the types of dietary patterns and their effects on cardiometabolic outcomes, followed by an overview of the protocol of his dissertation project, which is the functional food study. So please join me in welcoming Onyedika.
Thank you so much for that introduction. It's kind of weird. For 3 years, I've been sitting here listening to others. Today, it is me you are listening to. And that shows the the improvement we have made so far in this program. And I'm very grateful for all the opportunities being provided to me. So today, before you leave here today, I'll make sure that you know one or two things about me, particularly my country, where I come from, very important. And that's why I dress like this, to give you an appreciation of the culture as well. Then I will dive into the literature to discuss with you lifestyle in the context of cardiometabolic diseases. Also looking at dietary pattern research in CMD as well. Also discuss mechanism of dietary pattern improvement in CMD, and also discuss the diet gut microbiota host metabolism. Then I will push a bit about age and also look at race disparity in context of obesity research. And I'll give you an overview of my dissertation research, then the step I'm taking to complete this dissertation. Okay. So I get excited when I talk about my country, very, very beautiful country. What is interesting about Nigeria is, as you see different colors in this map, that is how diverse we are. So we speak different languages, different culture, and then different food, different way of dressing. Actually, this cap I'm wearing is what I bought from Kano on my recent trip, but I'm not from there, right? So these different colors represent what we call the 6 geopolitical zones, right? And then on the far left, you will see the northeast. Then on the far right, you will see the northwest. Then on the central, you will see the north central. Then on the lower bottom, you see the southwest. Most of you may be familiar with Lagos, right? Then on this delta, you will see the south where my brother comes from. Then in between, you will see the green portion, that small portion, that is where I come from, right? And then I was actually born in a state called Anambra, very prominent state, and it's very affluent as well. I was born in a city, very popular city called Nnewi, but I'm not from there. I'm from another state called Ebonyi, kind of smaller to Anambra. What is interesting about Ebonyi is that I'm actually older than the state. So the state was created after I was born, right? And I'm also a first generation college student, first in my family to go to university, which is also very interesting. All right. Now, I was looking at this morning, and I must tell you, I have spent all my adult years in the university, and I think it is time to get a new life. So I started as a 19-year-old boy studying biochemistry in Ebonyi State University. That is where I'm from originally, not knowing what to do with this degree. But I'll tell you another interesting story. It is also very interesting because the man I'm going to speak about is actually on Zoom now, is in Kampala, which is about 1 a.m. in the morning right now. So 1 a.m. in the morning right now. So in Nigeria, before you graduate from a bachelor's degree, you must produce a dissertation. You must do an actual project. So they have to assign you to an advisor. And this is actually a 6-credit unit course you have to graduate. Then this is where the interest in research and academia began, when I was assigned to Dr. P.M. Aja, who is now the Dean Research, University of Kampala. Like I told you, it's 1 a.m. now, but he's on Zoom listening to me because we have been in touch all this while, and I owe almost all my success in academia to him. So we did this study where we induced obesity in rats and fed them with extract from commonly consumed vegetable in Nigeria. So that excitement of doing a practical stuff. So you will see me in the middle. Then I still have my hair. I'm very young. Then the other picture is when I presented this research in a scientific conference. So the euphoria that came with this was actually what motivated me. And when he said, Annie, go and get your master's, I was very excited. But I thought I had seen, as a young boy, I was excited not to do the master, but to leave where I did my undergrad and go to somewhere else and experience life. So that was the challenge I took up, right? He wanted me to be in the university, but I wanted a new challenge. Then I went back to do my master's now to the north central part of Nigeria, University of Ilorin, which is one of the best universities in Nigeria. There I got my master's in biochemistry. Towards the end of this master's, I became more excited about research. But to me, I wanted a new challenge. I think I've seen everything in Nigeria, right? I wanted to leave Nigeria and see what is out there in the world. I started applying for scholarship, but unfortunately, this was in 2019, 2020. All of us knew what happened during that time, COVID-19. A lot of them were canceled, but only in England, they allowed us to come. And when Nigeria lifted the COVID-19 lockdown, the first lockdown, I think I was actually the first person that got into the plane and left, right? So you could imagine the apprehension, packing all your bags into your briefcase, right? Getting into a one-way flight ticket, going into a new country when you don't know what is going to happen to you. You will see on the news that people die every day from this virus. But that was the least of my worries. I was actually motivated to go and then going into this country, being isolated for 14 days. And to tell you what, I think leaving UK, I was thinking that this is the hardest achievement I have done in my life, right? Until I came here in the spring of 2022 and I found Brian sleeping at McKee, and I knew that I'm in for a big one, right? So, but now let us leave the struggle of pursuit of PhD and focus on the struggle of this public health challenge. I know I may be speaking to the choir with this slide, but it's important to make this point that obesity is a multifactorial metabolic disorder that could result from interactions of diet, physical inactivity with genetic composition, resulting in physiological manifestations like dyslipidemia, insulin resistance, and hypertension, culminating into cardiometabolic diseases. Now, this lifestyle pattern has been well established in associations like the American Heart Association come up with this ideal health factors or that could prevent cardiometabolic diseases like the physical activity, the BMI, eating healthy, normal physiological level of serum cholesterol, blood pressure, fasting blood glucose, and all of those things. And this has also been established with empirical studies. I'm going to share with you a very prominent one. So this was a study, a 13-year prospective study done with the data from UK Biobank. So they pulled data about 350,000 participants, right? And they looked at the adherence to healthy diets based on the previous slide I showed you. They look at a healthy diet, they look at regular physical activity, no smoking, no more BMI. And they categorize this lifestyle into three categories. The favorable, where you have 3 to 4 of these lifestyle factors. Intermediate, where you have 2 healthy lifestyle. Then unfavorable, where you have 0 or just 1 lifestyle. And they also identify cardiometabolic disease here as any incidence of diabetes, coronary heart disease, and a stroke at baseline. Now, they conducted this analysis called the Cox proportional hazard ratio analysis. And I'm going to orient you to this kind of graph that you will see going forward in this presentation. Now, on the y-axis, you will see the cumulative incidence of total mortality. And then on x-axis, you will see age. Now, on this, they are looking to see the effect of cardiometabolic disease here identified as diabetes, coronary heart disease, and stroke to total mortality as the age progresses. Now, using this as the baseline, as a reference, they identify that for each one of cardiometabolic disease that you have, there is actually a monotonic increase in the total mortality, right? Now, they went further to do the same analysis for lifestyle. I told you previously that they classified lifestyle into 3 categories, favorable, intermediate, and unfavorable. They did the same analysis. And using the unfavorable as the reference, they identified the same pattern of monotonic decrease in total mortality if you keep up with a healthy lifestyle. But what is interesting is when they look at the interaction of the two, right? Now, take this as the baseline where you have no cardiometabolic disease with a favorable lifestyle. Then you observe the same pattern of increase in the total mortality as you move from favorable, intermediate, and unfavorable. What is interesting is when you add cardiometabolic disease with a favorable lifestyle, you will see the attenuation of this total mortality rate. And it followed the same trend of a monotonic increase. So I've been able to convince you that lifestyle can be very prominent in reducing the risk associated with cardiometabolic disease. And talking about lifestyle, diet is the prominent one because food is what we eat every day. We can't live without food. Even while we are sitting here, we eat something, right? It's very important. But the study of food, as we know it today, did not start from here. We started from when James Lee conducted the first experiment to cure scurvy, and we isolated all these metabolites in food. Today, we have this database of every food, right? We know what each food is composed of. And our dietary guidelines started from a single nutrient recommendation. Now we're talking in the line of dietary pattern, the synergy between this food, how that can be beneficial to cardiometabolic risk factors and all these chronic non-communicable diseases, right? Now from there, we have progressed to getting dietary pattern. How do we combine this food? We became so excited and became so genius with this creative, like combining food and talking about timing, intermittent fasting, calorie restriction, Mediterranean diet, ketogenic, all of them, right? And we have also been able to classify and look at the metabolism or the mechanism of action of all this kind of dietary pattern. But where we are going with this is the precision nutrition, right? And what can we do with all this compendium of information? How do we bring them together to be able to make a precise nutritional recommendation that is tailored to each individual, right? So this is a big debate going on social media, but I will leave it at that now. Now, there are actually 3 dietary patterns that is being identified by the USDA: the Mediterranean diet, the typical American diet, and the dietary approach to stopping hypertension. I'm going to discuss that a bit here in the context of research and cardiometabolic disease. Now, let's take this one as a starter, the Mediterranean diet. So Mediterranean diet is kind of a cultural diet where people eat with others in family setting. They also encourage physical activity, right? They eat more fruit, vegetables, and nuts. Most importantly, olive oil, legumes, and moderate consumption of fish, seafood, wine, and even less consumption of processed meat and processed food. Right. Now, this study that had, so this observational cohort preventive study that had over 7,000 participants, they randomized them into 3 diet groups. The Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin olive oil, and the Mediterranean diet supplemented with mixed nuts, and a controlled diet just advised based on reduced dietary fat. Now, just like in the previous slide I have showed you, they were able to prove or show that those in Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin oil have a lower hazard ratio when compared to the control, and also very lower when compared to those supplemented with nuts. This is in the case of primary endpoint, and here they are looking at the composite acute myocardial infarction, stroke, and death from cardiovascular causes. They also look at this in the context of total mortality, and they saw the same trend where those in Mediterranean diet supplemented with extra virgin oil had lower hazard ratio compared to the control and those in the not group. Now, there is also another study, because Mediterranean diet is a very well-researched dietary pattern. So there's also another study that showed the same trend. But in this study, it is interesting, they compare Mediterranean diet with a low-fat diet, and they also observe the same trend where those in Mediterranean diet have lower hazard ratio. In the cases of primary endpoint here, they consider myocardial infarction, they consider the ischemic stroke, peripheral artery disease, and cardiovascular death event. Now, the next diet I'm going to speak about is the dietary approach to stopping hypertension. So more similar to the Mediterranean diet, but what is peculiar to this is the advice.
No. And the wondered about power. I think this did happen.
Okay.
Escape. Maybe. Say it again. Yay. You never know what's gonna happen during your talk.
So this diet is, what is peculiar is lowering the salt intake in all the food categories. And there's a study that compared the control diet, which is a typical diet we consume here in America. What they did is that they match the 25 percentile of the micronutrient, and they match the average macronutrient of what typical Americans consume. That is the control diet. And that diet is this. I have explained here what they did in that. Then this study was for 90 days, 30 days in crossover design, and they had 3 levels of sodium, high sodium intake, intermediate sodium intake, and low sodium intake. So high sodium intake is typically what you find in American consumption, and intermediate is the recommended upper limit, and low is what they hypothesize will reduce blood pressure in those individuals. And what they showed is that, so this rectangular box is the DASH diet, while the circular one is the control diet. Now, those on the DASH diet, when you compare them when they were on high sodium level, intermediate level, and low level, there was a decrease in the systolic blood pressure. And also, if you compare it to those in the control group, the differences between the two, there is also a significant difference between the two. Though those in the control group also follow the same trend, but those in the DASH diet decrease the systolic blood pressure more than those in the control group. The same trend was also followed in diastolic blood pressure, where the DASH diet lowered the diastolic blood pressure more than the control diet. So with this research on dietary pattern and all of this, scientists have come up with a composite score that to measure the dietary index of a participant or people. Now, what we call the dietary index. So there's a lot of them, which I'm going to discuss with you today. First one is the healthy eating index, where 3 components made up to total sum of 100, where 100 is like keeping to the healthy diet, but lower means that not keeping to the healthy diet. Then the other one is the alternate healthy eating index, which assigns score ranging from 0 for non-adherence to 110 for perfect adherence. Then another one for alternate Mediterranean diet score, which includes 9 components and takes value from 0 to 9. Then we have another score, which is dietary approach to stopping hypertension, scores from between 8 to 40. Now, this score has also been shown in empirical studies to match what is being seen in actual dietary pattern research. Now, in this study where they pulled data from a 12-year period, they were looking at change from the score, that point from when they started to 12 years. Now, they stratified this into quantile, and then where 1 is the lowest and the 5th quantile is the highest, showing that highest improvement in the score. And they show that those in high range had lower total mortality compared to those in the lower range. And this followed the same trend for alternate Mediterranean diet score and also for the DASH score as well. So this empirical evidence has shown that dietary pattern as well as those indices being used to calculate dietary pattern can be associated with health benefit concerning cardiometabolic disease and all of that. Now, I know the question you may be answering is how is this diet being able to do this? What is the molecular mechanism or what is the mechanism driving this physiological effect that we are seeing? So a lot of study has been done in this field as well, where they have looked at many pathways that might be influencing these changes we are seeing. And one of those effects is the glucose and lipid homeostasis, where this dietary pattern is acting through the classical pathways like the mTOR, down-regulating the mTOR and up-regulating the PK, and then acting to reduce the fatty acid, cholesterol, triglycerol, and up-regulating glucose intake and glycolysis. They have been also shown that this healthy dietary pattern could be acting through the FOXX01, the platelet activating factors, and other classical immune cells like the CD4 and CD8 working to downregulate the pro-inflammatory markers or towards modulation of immune cells and pathways. So this dietary pattern can also act through regulating metabolism related to rhythm regulation, the time of eating, in terms of restriction, in calorie restriction, and those kind of dietary pattern. There can also be diet-gene interaction. But a whole new set of field is emerging to show that all of these things we see in the upstream may actually be driven by what is happening in the gut through the gut microbiota. Right? So this can be through changing the physiological factors of the gut itself, like the pH, the temperature, or the transit time, or can be through the gut metabolites, like the short-chain fatty acid, bile acid, so acting through the gut to facilitate or to drive or propel what is happening upstream in physiological function. Now let us zoom in a bit in this gut and see what these microorganisms are doing. Now, so inside the large intestine, say, a term we call the dysbiosis, where the alpha diversity essentially means the lower alpha diversity means that the microbial community has lower species, right? And we have increase in pro-inflammatory bacteria. This can result to metabolite like the lipopolysaccharide. It's a glycoprotein that is found in the cell wall of gram-negative bacteria. And this LPS can jeopardize the architectural integrity of the intestine. There's also another metabolite that has been widely studied, the triamyl oxide, and this has been shown to be implicated in this atherosclerosis, high blood pressure, and heart failures. Right. Now, when this healthy eating pattern being established, then we have all these dietary fiber, unsaturated fatty acid, polyphenol. What they would do to the gut is to re-establish the ecobalance, right? And with the re-establishment of the ecobalance, you will see the increase in the alpha diversity, that is the diversity, the community of species of bacteria in the gut. This, specifically the short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria, be increased. And you see the increase in metabolite like the bile acid that has shown to potentiate hepatic lipoprotein and glucose metabolism. Now, another metabolite could be the branched-chain amino acid that has been shown to reverse this effect of some of these negative effect of the dysbiosis. Now, this can also be through the short-chain fatty acid that has well researched to be acting through some of the pathways I elucidated previously to actually bring about the metabolic phenotype shift, like weight loss, blood glucose, and lipid improvement, as well as low CMD risk. Now, with all this in mind, I want to shift focus to look at an opportunity where research can come in to be able to harness all this and be able to make a significant change when it comes to obesity research. What I want to press on you first is the high prevalence of obesity among young adults in the US.
Right.
And I want to share with you this cumulative frequency, which where they're showing here is the health risk factors and also the manifestation of the cardiometabolic disease. Now, if in here they stratify the individuals into two groups: the young adult from age 20 to 49, and the older adult from above 50 years. Now, if you look here, the physical activity, healthy diet is well poor in the young adults, but the manifestation of the cardiometabolic disease is not well prominent here, whereas in the older adults, you will see the manifestation of those cardiometabolic diseases. So what you can infer from here is the progression of these risk factors with age and the manifestation of the cardiometabolic disease as age progresses. Now, would there be a viable thesis to say that if we intervene at this younger age, these individuals will have a better lifestyle and be able to curb all these cardiometabolic diseases in a better life? I also want to press upon you another dimension of research that has been neglected in the US as well. So non-Hispanic Black have the highest prevalence of obesity in the US. So this is where you compare them to other races, non-Hispanic white, when you compare them to non-Hispanic Asians, as when you compare them to Hispanic and other races. Now, overall, the minority groups in the US have the highest prevalence of diabetes, right? When you compare them with the non-Hispanic whites. So clearly there is a health disparity in this area, and also the non-Hispanic Black have the highest prevalence of hypertension when you compare them to all other ethnic groups in the US. Now, I want to also share with you this analysis. The closed diamond you see is where, so here they're looking at the differences in prevalence between white and Black. So the closed diamond is when they were adjusted for age and sex, and the open diamond is when they're adjusted for age, sex, social risk factors, and lifestyle factors. And even with this adjustment, you also see a significant difference between obesity, where the Black has high prevalence of obesity, high prevalence of prediabetes, hypertension, and severe obesity and diabetes. So clearly, and if you look at the analysis of the risk factors, you will see that these risk factors of poor diet, physical activity, inappropriate food duration, also significantly different, way much higher in the non-Hispanic Black that could be interacting with many other factors to be driving this potentiation of obesity together with hypertension and all those cardiometabolic risk factors that you see in those minority groups. So clearly, my submission will be that a young adult who is a minority of non-Hispanic Black that has obesity suffers from a double burden.
Right.
And then, just to recap what I've said so far. So I have pressed upon you the healthy dietary pattern that holds the promise of mitigating the risk factors of cardiometabolic disease. I've also shown you the interaction of diet and gut microbiota elicit upstream physiological effect in cardiometabolic disease condition. Then I've also showed you the worrying trend of progression of obesity among young adults in the US, and showed you that the minority group in the US have higher prevalence of CMD and these risk factors. Now, with all this in mind, I want to introduce you to my dissertation. My intention here is to whet your appetite well enough so that you'll be able to come to my dissertation defense and hear the whole story. Right. So with all this in mind, this study was designed to examine the effect of personalized. So this is going to be explained later. So hold your breath. functional food enriched with fruit, vegetables, and nuts, looking at the primary carbohydrate and lipid metabolite, and then gut microbiome profile, the other metabolic markers as well. So specifically, we are looking to examine the benefit of personalized diet enriched with functional food in glucoregulating matter. Specifically, we're looking at the Mesuda index, right? We hypothesize that this will decrease in the Black on intervention diets than compared to the white. We're also going to assess the gut microbiome diversity in both group, which is going to increase we hypothesize going to increase in the Black on intervention diet than the white. Then lastly, we're also going to do the metabolomics, right? So looking at the primary intermediary pathway that these differences could be potentiated in these individuals. So we are targeting young adults between the age of 18 to 35, BMI between 25 to 45. So Black, not Hispanic, white. Of course, they have to be willing to consume our food, follow the protocol, consistent diet, we're stable, and they are non-smoker. So we have two groups to this study. We have the conventional diet group, and we have the personalized functional diet group. So those in the personalized functional diet group will receive the clementine, the carrot, all these food items, bell pepper, broccoli, prunes, almond, and walnut for 8 weeks. And those in the conventional diet will receive no study food, right? And they will also be receive dietary counseling. Those in personalized functional food will receive a personalized functional food diet counseling, while those in conventional will receive a dietary advice based on my plate. Now, so we do a pre-screening questionnaire where we use that to determine their eligibility and invite them for a 1-hour screening visit. There we determine their demography, the diabetic, fasting blood glucose, lipid, HbA1c, blood pressure. We also send them health questionnaires and they fill that history questionnaires. We phase them in within 1 to 2 weeks and we start the baseline. Then we do the randomization where they can either be randomized into the personalized functional food diet group or the conventional dietary advice group. Now, those in the personalized functional food diet group, they will have to consume those 7 food items. And what is also personalized about this is that all the information we collected during screening will be made available to the clinical dietitian. And with that, she will be setting out 3 goals for them. The first goal is to increase their fiber intake. The second goal is to lower the saturated fat. And the third goal is an individualized goal. So this is determined from all the information we provide. Say, for instance, they consume too much sugar in beverages. She may ask them to reduce it to a certain amount for a period of 8 weeks. So the overarching goal becomes how to incorporate this dietary advice with our food and how that changes all those parameters we are looking at. But those in a conventional dietary advice group, when they meet with the dietitian for the first time, she will expose them or walk them through My Plate, which is a government guideline that is available to anyone online. And subsequently, for the next five weeks, she will do a food recall, no cancer. Then we invite them to a baseline where they would have completed the counseling. We also do a 24-hour appetite rating questionnaire. This is a questionnaire that goes to their phone every hour from 8 in the morning to 11 p.m. at night. We also measure their metrics. We ask them to bring their stool sample right within 24 hours of collection. This is what we use to determine or sequence the gut microbiome. Then we do the OGTT and the PAT, memory and attention test. Then we do give them a physical activity tracker to go home with. With that, we estimate how active they are throughout the duration of the study. And we follow them for 8 weeks and do all this measurement after 8 weeks. So this just the dietary composition of all the food items we're giving them. And if you look at this, you might say, wow, you are giving them extra calories to consume. They might be putting up many weight. But hold your thought. I will show you a slide towards the end of this. And this is just showing the baseline characteristics of all the participants, stratified on white, black, and white, black, both on the 2 groups. So this is just where we are now. Overall, we have had about 568 pre-screening questionnaire completed, and we have screened 154, enrolled 112, right? We in both group, we have had 55 in CD, 57 in PD. Some has dropped in both group. And at the end, we have white completed. We have 24 completed in the CD, 22 black completed in the control group. Then we have 24 actually. The 25 will be done in next 2 weeks. So I have confidence that it's going to complete. So I'm adding it here with faith, right? And then we have 22 black completed already. Now, we did analysis with just the baseline data, right, to see the interaction of race and sex. And what we're observing is that the black male have a higher HbA1c when compared to the black female. Then we also look at the systolic blood pressure, where we're observing that the black male have a higher systolic blood pressure when compared to the black female, right? So this just like exploratory analysis, early exploratory analysis to see that the context of race and sex could also be an important factor to include in the analysis. Now, how are we keeping tracking of the compliance of this since we are giving them food to consume and we're not asking them to come to our kitchen? So every day, the participants send us a text message to report their food consumption. And we also have a way that we're going to quantify this empirically, right? So the first one is we calculate the dietary carotene, the self-reported diet history questioning. And we are also going to use a HPLC to quantify the serum carotenoid. So essentially, when they are consuming this high fruit, vegetables, and nuts over a period of 8 weeks, we should see increase in these markers. So what I'm showing you here is a self-reported dietary carotene from the diet history questionnaire. So overall, we are seeing increase in the alpha carotene. We are also seeing increase in the beta carotene, giving us hope that there's high compliance to this intervention. So we have also calculated the alternate Mediterranean diet score, like I explained to you previously, and we are seeing increase over time in those in the intervention group. We're also seeing increase in the healthy eating index in those in the intervention group compared to the control group, as well as the alternate healthy eating index in those in the PD group compared to the CD group. Now, I ask you to hold your thought about when you saw the total calorie we are asking them to consume additionally. So when we look at the BMI to see if they put on weight between those in the CD group and the PD group, we are seeing no differences in weight change over time. Okay, so what next step am I taking to complete this session? And then hope to invite you back soon. So, like I told you, we are towards the tail end of the study. In the next 2 weeks, we'll have the final study visit. And once that is completed, we go into analysis and all that. Then we hope to do the test to compare the group visit and race interaction. And we also conduct a mediation analysis to see if the gut microbiome changes could be a factor in any observed differences. Right. So this is me, Lagos, last Saturday. So I was actually on this diet for 1 week. I'm collecting my blood. So what we are doing is we are doing method development to quantify the serum carotenoid. And yeah, I want to thank all the present and past members of the Dillon Lab that has been helpful with this study. Kathleen, or next week we'll get your picture. All right, thank you so much. Do you want to take your first time?
Good question. You have disqualified any subjects for non-compliance and how you find non-compliance in the functional fiscal. Please repeat the question.
Oh, yeah. So Dr. Angwa asked if we have had to disqualify any participants based on non-compliance, and how do we establish non-compliance? So to date, we haven't disqualified anybody, but we have seen people drop based on not being able to meet the compliance. So they willingly come to us and say, I can't do this. So I will share experience with you. When we put them in this high fiber food diet, what happens is it causes them stomach upset during the first week. And we do advise them not to consume this at once. We ask them to spread it across throughout the day. But some people do have that stomach upset, but that phases out within the second week and third week. Their body normalizes to it. And also some people see it as too much to eat and all of that. So we have had people drop based on that, but not disqualifying people on that.
This is not many days because I'm not in this field, but how did you define functional food, and then how did you pick the food that they're eating?
That's a quite interesting question. Okay, functional food are those foods. So there's been classified that a whole database on that those food that, in addition to their nutritional value, they do also have health benefits. So this food we have chosen based on that, and then also based on the common fruit and vegetables people consume.
Something like fiber doesn't have any calories.
Yeah.
Fiber doesn't have any calories, but it has
Health benefit. Okay, yeah.
And things like polyphenols and the cruciferous vegetables, not all vegetables come under the functional food category, but specific kinds of vegetables.
Did I interpret correctly that the magnetic amount of calories were about 600 calories per day with this intervention, but there was no increase in BMI?
Yes.
The idea is that they are replacing calories, so they are.
That's actually a good question. Yeah, that's actually a very good question, but we are not assessing if they are replacing. But I tell you what, I have been on this diet as well. When you do consume it, just that alone, you are going to be filled, right? So the assumption may be correct that they are replacing the calorie. But we don't have a way to quantify that but we also keeping track of the food recall and diet history questionnaire. So that may give us an indication of what they were consuming previously and what they were consuming during the week of that study. So maybe that is where we can find that answer.
You're collecting physical activity data?
Yes.
Can you tell me what you're going to do with that?
Okay, so the physical activity data is because we expect them to maintain the same physical activity level during the course of that study. So we don't want someone who is physically inactive to come into the study and begin to go to gym, right? So that becomes a confounder in our analysis. So we are keeping track of this to show in final analysis that these people maintain the same physical activity level throughout the 8 weeks. So any effect we are seeing can be said to be due to the intervention.
Do you think body composition will change? Is there any data?
Yes, we're also doing the BIA. So yeah, we have.
Question related to race.
Yeah.
So there's some data with hypertension risk where we have greater risk of hypertension in Black American adults. But what about an immigrant population that maybe only lived in the US for a year? So are you taking that into account, and how can you do that in this type?
That's quite interesting. I think we should write a grant on that. Yeah, so that's there's a whole new study called acculturation, right, that can come into here. So study has also shown that when people migrate to, say, from Africa to America, so within a period of time, they acculturate into the diet and begin to consume what a typical American would consume, and that may also expose them to such risk. But in this study, we are not looking at to see if African American who has been here maybe all their life and people who migrated to America within a period of time, really changes. So we're just classifying everybody based on that race. But that is quite an interesting way to look at that study as well.
There are also questions about obesity.
Mhm.
Our group also does obesity-related research.
Okay.
However, what you've introduced, what people have also noted to us, is probably different if you had obesity at the age of 3
Yeah.
than if you developed obesity while you were in college.
Mhm.
So and is there a history that you're taking, or do you have to have been at that weight for the last 6 months? How are you taking?
When they started putting up weight, is that what you mean?
Yeah, so, and you know, you had, and I'm going to, individuals who had, you know, been with obesity since they were very young and went through puberty,
Yeah.
or if it was in their development.
Interesting. So the only data we have on that is that we asked them to tell us how their weight has changed over the last 3 months. So with that can also give us an indication of how the fluctuation in their BMI over time. But we don't ask specific question of when they started being on that BMI over time.
I don't know how you do that, but that's something that's come up, you know.
Are you at your highest weight in adulthood?
Hmm.
Or did you always struggle? There are studies you can do.
We have a question that what was the minimum rate that they had in entire life and what is the maximum?
The minimum weight as an adult.
What would be the hardest part of the analysis, do you think?
I think the hardest part of the analysis is putting all this together, right? So we can actually look at interaction of group, race, sex on, say, glucose, blood pressure, and all of that. We can also look at the diet changes on the gut microbiota. But to be meaningful is to bring all this together, to be able to see if maybe the changes we are seeing in glucose is being mediated by what is happening in the gut, right? And if we can establish that, how is it happening, right? Can we offer a pathway that can show clearly that this is going on here and this is going on here, this is bringing about this effect? I think that is the hardest part, and that is what will give meaning to it. Because when you look at it, like maybe glucose increase or decrease, okay, gut microbiota, like the diversity increase, okay, so how are they coming together, right? Can we like tell a story where you eat this diet and this diet influences the specific gut microbiota, and that gut microbiota is responsible for this upstream effect that we are seeing.
You also like social variables, things like sleep, right? It affects how sleep might change.
Yeah. So what we have in this data is self-reported sleep. So we ask them to report their sleep. We are also doing other analysis based on cognitive function as well, the D2 test and memory attention test. We also have other analysis like environmental analysis, like food security and all of those things. So it will be interesting to see how all of those things play into factor to bring about any changes that we might see.
Question. In this type of studies, how do you handle potential placebo effect? The subjects cannot be blinded to the knowledge. Have you thought about that? Especially when you incorporate some measures that have more question-based.
Yeah. That's interesting. So in this kind of study, it's actually impossible to like blind participants because they will see the food, they know that. Yeah. So do you have any thought on how such?
I think you just have to consider the presentation of the data, right? Especially for some of those variables that are more question-based, subjective-based, as opposed to the ones that are more objective and laboratory-based measurements. But yeah, there could be some behavior that is affected by the intervention itself. So those individuals who are assigned to a healthy diet might incorporate some additional behaviors because they know they are on the healthy treatment. I don't know, but I think there's some risk in that area as well.
Yeah, I see your point. That's a valid point.
Nice job. Onyedika. Are stool samples representative of the whole microbiome, or are you also measuring
The oral?
microbiome?
No, we're interested in the gut. Yeah, so I don't think we can assess the oral with the stool. You have to swap the oral cavity together. So we're interested in the gut, right? Because the hypothesis is based on what is happening in the gut, maybe what is the influencing the changes we might see. Yeah.
Okay, let's.